All right, and we are back into another episode of Chasing 1969, a New York Jets podcast. It is Wednesday, September 28th, right in the middle of week 3 and week 4 of the NFL season. Today's episode going to be recapping the Cincinnati Bengals victory over the New York Jets. We are going to talk a little bit about news and some injury updates, and of course preview the upcoming game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, I am joined by Teddy Pristash. Before I ask him how he's doing, like I do every week, like we haven't spoken for 20 minutes before recording this show, make sure to follow us on Twitter at NYJ_chasing69. Same with the YouTube page. Teddy's at Teddy Huncho. I am at Blake Andrew Pace. Follow some of my Jets work over at Sports Illustrated as well too. Teddy, how are you?
What up? I'm doing good, man. I got to tell you, so we just finished week 3.
Yeah.
And for me, week 3 is the week where it's like officially like now we're in the season, you know, because like week 1 is the first week and week 2 is the first week. That's not the first week. So now we're here at week 3 and it really did feel, listen, man, this is the way my brain works. It really did feel just like we're in the thick of things, you know, in the middle of the season. And it's when I start to already like panic that we're already 3 weeks down of this 18-week season.
I was just about to counter with the same thing. I was thinking about it yesterday after the Cowboys-Giants game. I was like, fuck, man, we're already 3 down. Like,
it sucks.
Isn't that crazy?
After next week,
terrible?
It's a quarter of the way through.
It's an addiction. This thing is an addiction.
It's such an addiction.
I mean,
and it's like
all
of us.
The people listening and watching only hear and see us for an hour here, but we're in multiple group chats where it is just football 24/7, and it stretches all year round. Dies down a little bit in the summer, but yeah, I'm a full-blown addict. I had the same thoughts. It's like, holy shit, we're almost a month into the season. But yeah. Teddy, you may be doing well. The Jets, on the other hand, are not doing well. Let's dive right into that Bengals game. It was a rough one as well. The final was, I don't even have the final.
27-12.
27-12. I was, for some reason, was thinking 29-15.
If you're wondering, how did the Jets score 12 points? They scored 4 field goals, 0 touchdowns.
Teddy, before the show, Teddy was like, hey, 4 scoring drives. They just were all field goals.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess, listen, the Jets, it was another game that was just like a disappointing game and we lost. I do just want to preface, because we're going to, you know, get down in the dumps about why the Jets lost this game. They're very weak at a lot of places, whatever. I do just want to say, everyone's like losing their mind. Like, I wanted to win this game too, but the Bengals are probably better than the Jets, don't you think? Like, just overall. Definitely. And we all kind of went into this year being like, yeah, I think the Jets will probably have anywhere from like 6 to 9 wins, like depending. And then they come out and lose to the Bengals, and it's like the sky is falling. It's like, all right, let's take a chill pill. There are things that are wrong, that are bad with this team, and you know, there's a chance that things go the wrong way, but I also think there's a solid chance that, you know, we continue to build, continue to, improve. And, you know, we'll hopefully just have this season be a positive on the way to this dynasty that we're building.
I like the quick spin of optimism there.
Yeah. Quick spin of optimism. But yeah, I mean, to me, what this game was, I don't know. It really, to me, felt like another Jets game where our offensive line couldn't block anyone and our defensive line couldn't sack the other team's quarterback. And that was like the story of the game for me. And the Jets just couldn't do enough to win, to overcome those two things.
Yeah. And we'll talk about both sides of that football, but you're right in the trenches leading up to this week. It's okay. We faced really talented pass rushes the last 2 weeks, you know, Baltimore with their size, Cleveland with Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney. And it's like, okay, this isn't going to be the most difficult front 4 that we're going to face all season. And there's a ton of great ones that are coming up on the schedule, which is scary. And then on the flip side, it was like, okay, the Bengals have given up the league high in sacks through 2 weeks into the season, 13. You kind of have to take that with a grain of salt, because week 1, TJ Watt, you know, probably up there, if not for being injured, defensive player of the year. Micah Parsons, week 2 in Dallas. The Jets necessarily don't have a guy of that nature, but it's still a bad Bengals offensive line. And it was that same story where it's like, we're getting to the quarterback, we're getting pressure, we're hurrying and we're chasing Burrow out of the pocket. But if you can't bring the guy to the ground, that doesn't do much at all too. So yeah, it's a frustrating loss because I think there was a lot of momentum following the Cleveland win. And we said it last week. It's a very lucky win. Like, you can be happy with the victory, but understand a lot had to break your way. We also said, and I know I spoke on this, Cincinnati was coming in a desperate spot. They can't afford, fresh off a Super Bowl berth, to start the season 0-3. You knew they were going to come out and try and get things right for their season. 27 points, definitely a good start for them there too. So I think situationally, it's just unfortunate. And we've talked about the front half of the schedule and how brutal it is. I kept saying this at the beginning of the season. I truly don't see the Jets really racking up these wins until week 10 here. So I know that you want to be optimistic, but it's about how the team starts to look better, not the results to me. So that's kind of where I'm at. If we want to go into things more specifically, Teddy, we just spoke about the trenches a little bit, but what are your thoughts on the offense?
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead. Were you gonna say
you're
something
fine.
else?
I was just gonna say, what was I gonna say? I don't know, something about the Jets being bad. No, that's cool. I was muted or whatever. I just think that the Jets and the Bengals, or no, what I was gonna say was the see, sometimes you just start a sentence, hope you find it along the way.
Yep.
Like this beginning of the schedule, it's difficult, and it's like, how are we gonna rack up these wins? That's where, like, a win from last week, it's like, yeah, it was lucky. Like, at least we snuck one in. You know what I mean? It's like we stole a win. Like, let's try to steal a couple more. So in some respects, we're already ahead of schedule. But yeah, I guess we can start with this offense. And Joe Flacco over 50 pass attempts again. Because the Jets were just trying to get back in this game. The offense did move the ball. To some extent, they didn't look horrible. I thought, overall the receivers had good games, just with the opportunities presented to them. Garrett Wilson obviously was doing his thing again, and Elijah Moore made a few plays. Tyler Conklin's been more involved in this offense the past 2 weeks. So I think overall, kind of the pass catchers were fine, and the running backs did everything they can. Breece Hall freaking targeted in the passing game a ton. Joe Flacco loves checking down to those running backs. So I guess, like, from a skill player perspective, I think that we kind of looked okay. But what was the real, Achilles heel of this team was just the offensive line. And again, especially that left side of the offensive line with George Fant just getting beat off the edge. I do think we are low key, like, disrespecting Trey Hendrickson, because we keep saying how, like,
he's
they don't have that good of a line. Like, he's a good player. And they used him to replace Carl Lawson, and he's had more success there over the last 2 years than Carl Lawson has.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's the story, is the line just continued to get beat, and we kind of talked about how we're going to continue to learn, and hopefully this will be a better matchup for George Fant and the offensive line. And we hoped that they would get it figured out and kind of look competent. But just overall, I mean, they were really just getting beat up most of the day, still unable to kind of run up the gut in the middle of that line. And just the pass blocking just isn't good enough, especially when you have Joe Flacco, who can't really move around. So I kind of thought that was the story of the day. Even though we were able to move the ball in big spots, we either had stupid penalties, had drop passes, or, we had Joe Flacco getting sacked.
Yeah, not to just throw a question at your face and catch you off guard here. I didn't really watch a ton of the Jets this past year through 3 weeks. Does this offensive line is it taking a step back from last year? Because I thought last year it looked like they were finally starting to get things going. You bring in Laken Tomlinson at left guard. You move AVT over to the right side. Fant has obviously, we'll talk about him a little bit later too, now that he is on the IR, taken a massive step back. What are comparing year to year, what do you see here?
Yeah, last year, I thought the offensive line was like mostly okay, except for the like the games where we had a lot of injuries is when they kind of really looked horrible, and that's why kind of
Gotcha.
there's people still think like, oh, the Jets had a terrible offensive line. This year, I'd say it's been worse. I do think that like they've looked okay in points. I
Yeah.
really think like the weakness has just been George Fant getting beat off the edge and really like killing a lot of plays. I mean, how many times are we going to watch Joe Flacco fumble the ball because he gets hit in his blind side? And I mean, you don't want to just single one guy out but that has been the biggest hindrance of this offense through 3 games is Joe Flacco has what 4 or 5 fumbles just off his getting hit from his blind side. So yeah, it's tough. I mean, Fant, listen, we talked about it. Like everyone wanted to crown him because he had this great year, and then you're moving him around back and forth all camp, and he just doesn't look the same. And now he's obviously hurt. But yeah, I don't know. It's just I wouldn't say. I do think there's times where Joe Flacco had time in the pocket, and where they do get some type of push. So it's hard for me to like really say they stink, but just in so many key moments, they're letting up a sack or a big play. And it's just, I don't know. I would say probably overall they've looked worse, but I think most of it comes from that left tackle position.
Yeah. And if you think about it, they've had they are down 3 tackles now. So compared to what they walked in the season for, they are down their top 3 tackles. Moving forward, it is going to be McDermott and Mitchell, which is just like,
God, I hate Connor McDermott.
It's crazy that this is where the Jets are at tackle now. And it's, I don't know. We had that conversation in the offseason where it's like, you hope they did enough to address the tackle position, and we're sitting here and it's even worse than we thought it would be.
Right. And Max Mitchell,
Mhm.
just real quick on Max Mitchell, he's like looked good for what he is.
Yeah.
But you also just have to remember what he is. Like, he doesn't look terrible. That's fine. But he's also not a Pro Bowl tackle. He's not experienced. So, like, there is those growing pains. So I mean, you're right. It's just what we expected our tackle play to be and what it has been is kind of the story of how this team's success has gone.
Yeah. And watching the offense, like we talked about it last week, I thought LaFleur did a really nice job adjusting the game plan to fit around Joe Flacco. That needs to stay the same moving forward with Zach Wilson. I don't think we go back to this week 1 offense. I think it's a lot of these deep dropbacks. I think it's a lot of this play action, because with this tackle situation, you're bringing back Zach Wilson, but you also are bringing him back after a scary injury where he, I know that the Jets are saying we're going to wait till he's 100%. There is still that concern with a bone bruise that this is one of those injuries that can take a while to actually get to 100%. So if he's out there and it's 100%, but not 100%, this offense needs to do as much as it can to get Zach Wilson so far away from edge rushers and these play action boots that get him to the outside quick. Like,
I agree.
A lot of the short passing stuff, the 3-step dropbacks, the tackle situation, and the lack of pop we've seen from the interior guys as well too. Like, this offense needs to stay the way it is right now to make sure that Zach Wilson can last, to that end part of the season when they get to face some of these easier opponents.
Definitely.
Outside of that, offensively, there are a few shows, they are trying to get Elijah Moore involved into this game. And they were targeting him down the field, but they're not getting him in the way. And you said this before we recorded, they're not getting him opportunities close to the line of scrimmage, which is interesting. They are doing a lot of dink and dunks to Conklin and Breece Hall, and Elijah Moore is that burner that's like go routes and just throw it up there. And that's what, Zach Wilson's arm coming back will probably help. Joe doesn't have that at this moment. There was the second drive. It was a 3rd and 9, I believe. And Joe Flacco ripped a shot toward the end zone for Elijah Moore. The ball was too far on the inside and the DB was there. If it was just a little bit further to the outside, it's one of those things where it's just like, if you're that much closer, Elijah has the room. He's got the separation from the DB, could have been a touchdown. So it's plays like that where you're just like, man, they're trying to get him involved. But it seems like they're only doing it on the deep passing concepts.
Yeah, to that point, I mean, looking at the targets right here, Elijah Moore, 10 targets, tied for second with Garrett Wilson, only behind Breece Hall. He had 4 receptions for 49 yards. it's I'm glad that they were targeting him. And I personally, and we can kind of get into this, and we'll, as we're on the offense, we can kind of start with Mike LaFleur. I personally think that coaching offensively was fine in this game. I don't think it was horrible. My one thing with Elijah Moore is I do wish they gave him some more quick opportunities just in the short game, just to kind of get him going a little bit. Get his feet under him, just a couple easy catches, whereas they were just trying to get him the ball deep. And kind of to this point of the season, Elijah Moore really hasn't made a ton of plays. I think 4 catches is his most per game, per any game, but almost all of his receptions are coming in like very important times, 2nd and long, 3rd and long, when we really need a play. So the utilization and the idea of like getting him involved is there. And I want to commend LaFleur for that. I just do think, they need to make a little bit more focus of let's get the ball in this guy's hands and see if he can make a play. And maybe Joe Flacco seems to like Garrett Wilson a lot, maybe Zach Wilson will look Elijah Moore's way a little bit more, but I mean, 10 targets, it's not like they're not trying.
It is funny that, and it's obviously Braxton has a very specific role in this offense, but it's like, just give Elijah Moore the end around one time. Just see what he can do with the ball in his hands. It's like playmakers in space. That's just what the NFL is right now. The way the defenses let you play, it's just get the ball out to your playmakers. And look, with the deep passing stuff, this is actually interesting. I don't want to go too off into a tangent about this, but, I think
please do.
The recent, NFL play offensively, and the last 2 years, it has been just bombs away down the field, opened up the deep passing attacks. It started with Tyreek Hill. It goes to Jalen Waddle. All of these burners now are just like pushing. And the difference has been is now defenses are just running 2 high safeties the majority of the time. And it has cut down a lot of that. So in terms of like feeding Elijah on those go routes, they're giving him the targets, but those opportunities don't really exist much often unless you've got 2 deep burners at the same time, a team like Miami or Buffalo who can do that as well too. You have to have, it's tougher to get those deep shots now. And the defense is always a year or 2 behind the offense. They pick up, okay, what are the offenses doing now to stretch us out? How do we react? Right now it's 2 deep safeties. And I'm going to put a pin in that because I want to talk about that when we get to the defense and Jordan Whitehead. Speaking of the wide receivers though, I did see, like, I don't know if you ever saw this rumor and people were floating it around, and I think it got shut down pretty immediately, but it was like, man, teams looking for wide receivers should take a look at Corey Davis. I don't get that. I don't get why the Jets would do that.
Yeah, me neither. No, I think Rich Cimini tweeted out like
that's who it was.
That he heard from someone that teams are inquiring. I think it's just one of those. It's like, okay, who's the veteran who the team maybe won't pay?
Gotcha.
Who maybe they'll look to trade. Like it's just like sense. Who fits that narrative, and then that's Corey Davis. And sure, it does make sense. I personally, I mean, we've talked about it. I think having Corey Davis as this number 3 really solidifies our wide receiver room, to the max. And you lose him, and then it's like, okay, do we have to rely on Berrios and then Jeff Smith? Denzel Mims didn't suit up last week. So you're really kind of just saying goodbye to your depth if you traded him. So I do not think that's going to happen. I honestly think the Jets are going to keep him around next year.
I think he's in the opportunities he gets. He had a couple of grabs in this one. There was my note was good Corey Davis play. Why would they trade him? I just like, there are these 3rd down opportunities where he got over the middle. There was one. It's just when you're a team,
think both of his receptions were just kind of like 3rd downs where you needed to play, and you just have a veteran guy. And people want to talk shit about Corey Davis for his drops. I mean, sure, he's had a few drops while he's been a Jet, but he's had a few big plays as well.
Of course. And when you're a team that, as we move forward to the rest of this season and you're trying to figure out what you've got in your young quarterback, why are we going to just start trading away weapons? Yes, we've upgraded at receiver, we upgraded at tight end and running back, but that doesn't mean we need to just start giving away other pieces too. And his contract is easy to get out of. It's not like they're tied to this Kenny Galladay type deal.
No, fully
So,
agree.
yeah, I mean,
I'm glad
anything
you worked that in.
actually, uh, I have this Giants Jets thing in my head right now where I just like, do you think the Johnsons are just standing over and looking at the Giants and they're saying they have such a lower payroll? They have such a worse team talent wise. Their offensive line is worse. Their defense is worse. Their quarterback is probably worse. Their wide receivers are worse. Tight end probably worse. Yet they bring in a guy, and 2 weeks in, they're already starting to rattle off wins. I know the Giants season could go many different ways, but do you think that pisses them off to just be like, we've been building for a couple of years with Joe Douglas? They bring in Joe Shine and Brian Dable, and they're already getting like the Giants are the buzz of the city right now.
Yeah, I think you're
We're
giving them
playing
a
the
little
results too
too much
early.
credits. I mean,
Of
first of
course.
all, we just saw them lose last night or
Yeah,
2 nights ago.
of course.
Like the Giants' first two wins were like vintage 2019 Sam Darnold wins. Like
Yeah,
they were
this is
wins
a
where
bad
the
team.
team figures it out, but
Of
but
course.
nothing about watching the Giants makes me say like, man, I wish that we were as good as the Giants.
No, and
But
their
I know what you mean.
roster
Like
is not
they're finding
talented.
their way to wins, and we've kind of talked about it. It's like these coaches, when the result is a win, like these coaches just, it doesn't really matter like what happened in the game, because at the end of the day, you figured it out and everything is going to be positive. And when the result's a loss, everything's going to be negative. So Brian Dable, I mean, yeah, he's getting the love quick, but I think this Giants season's going to turn around quick.
Well, that's the thing is like we're talking about it 3 weeks into the season, and I also would think, the Giants, they beat the Titans who look bad, they beat the Panthers who look
Bad.
decent at best, but probably bad. They lose to the Cowboys with Cooper Rush. So I agree. I think the season, I think it's a little like buying into the love and just Dable as a coach, but I mean, it's just, I don't know. They have, to me, one of the worst three rosters in all of football. And in terms of starting quarterbacks, a bottom three quarterback, and offensive line is terrible. The defense is shot. I don't know. It's just going to be fun to monitor as the year goes on. If the Giants are staying competitive in all these games and the Jets are just getting blown out and blown out and blown out, that's going to start getting people pissed off about this, because the Giants are in the tank year of this rebuild. They're in the gut the roster tank. We don't need to go much further there, because you're right. It's 3 weeks and they beat two shit teams and couldn't beat the Dallas Cowboys without Dak. So
yeah, there you go. Yeah, I'm ready to talk about this fucking shitstorm of a defense.
I don't want to talk about them. Yeah, go right ahead. You want to start us off?
Yep, I do, because all week last week there was one key to the game that was in my head all week. We talked about it over and over again in the podcast, and I said we're going to learn a lot about the Jets this week. We're going to have more answers, and we're going to see how can this defensive line and pass rush perform against, a below average NFL offensive line that allowed 13 sacks through 2 weeks. And I really think the answer to that question was not a positive one. We saw this Jets pass rush kind of look the same as it's looked the past 3 years, where sure, maybe we won a little bit more like technically one-on-ones off the edge, and we were pressuring the quarterback and making him move, but just consistently, the same as it's been the past few years, we have just consistently, they were just not able to wrap up the quarterback, get your hands on him, and get him down. And Joe Burrow was just able to escape and roll out in the pocket, and then was able to make plays down the field, which, any secondary is going to give up plays down the field if the pass rush isn't able to get there quick enough. And so I think that is just where I'm really feeling like bad about this Jets team, and where, that is such an important part of this team, is having a dominant D line, and the idea of this team being able to take a step and, be competitive and become one of these, middle to top tier teams in the NFL really does, rely on that defensive line becoming good to great. So just to continually, like, again, not see the results and not see the ability to get home and get to the quarterback, it was really, really disappointing. And I think that was just one of the, like, that was why they were able to kind of do what they could offensively, because they were able to make plays kind of late, 3, 4, 5 seconds after the snap.
Yeah. Here's the problem with like the way that this defense, and it's a scheme that is used by a dozen teams in the league. It's if you're going soft zone, that means you need to get pressure with 4. And if you can't get pressure with 4, a team like Cincinnati that has 3 great wide receivers and a talented running back out of the backfield, and even Samaje Perine gets involved with a passing touchdown or receiving touchdown there as well too. If you're going to sit in a soft coverage all day and allow defenses, if it's a bend don't break mentality and you're supposed to get pressure with 4, if you can't get pressure with 4, everybody's going to be open eventually. That's just how it works. And there were many times where it's just T. Higgins balling out early in the, or it was late in the second quarter, early in the third. They were just going Jamar Chase. Like it was like 4 plays in a row where they're just targeting Jamar. If you are just going to sit back and kind of, do this bend don't break mentality, you need to get pressure with 4. And for a team that let up 13 sacks heading into this game, there was just 0 pop from the edge. Got to give credit to the guys in the middle, because for the 3rd week in a row, I thought Quinnen and Sheldon did a very good job themselves. Rankins had a good sack there, a scary one too, where Joe after was like holding his knee and you're like, oh, I hope he's okay. So a low hit there, but Quinnen was great.
Quinnen has been awesome all year.
Just like a revelation of a season. Yeah. And he's supposed to be good. He's a 3rd overall pick, but what we said leading up to the season is get good players around him. And now he's balling out. The problem is the guys around him just don't seem to be doing all that much.
And he's, doing great against the run, but pass rush isn't really what he's there to do. Obviously he's a part of that, but it just comes down to being able to get home.
Yeah. He's been an animal. The D tackles I've been very happy with in the rotation that they've got going in there. Okay, the big thing for me, and it's it's a storyline has started, I guess, since Sala was here last year talking about the defense, is miscommunications and dumb penalties and just not being a smart defense. And last year, you could almost buy the excuse of there's just no talent on the defense. They went in and they brought talent, whether it's, you're getting Lawson back from the injury, that's an upgrade. You draft Jermaine Johnson. You bring in a couple of edge rushers as well, too. You add Quan Alexander at linebacker. The back end of the defense, you go get DJ Reed, you draft Sauce at 4, you go get Jordan Whitehead, and you pay him a ton. And we're sitting here 3 weeks in, and it's still the same stupid mistakes. Quincy Williams and Sauce had a miscommunication on that Jamar Chase touchdown where it's just like, oh, we're going to leave the best wide receiver in football just open in the end zone. Okay, cool. Thanks. So the miscommunication there and the stuff last year, you can say, man, it could be a combination of coaching and lack of talent. The talent is on this Jets team, which is now why I think it leads into a what the fuck is going on with coaching. And, we talked before the season, how long does Ulbrich get a little bit of a leash here? We're seeing the same dumb mistakes, 17, 20 games in now with this coaching staff. I'm sure that's got to be frustrating for you as a fan for the team, but then just what are your thoughts on him as a defensive coordinator, or what the mentality of this defense is, because it's the same stupid mistakes game after game.
Yeah. No, yeah, it is. And it kind of is one of those things where you don't know where else to look, who else can you blame for, just continuously penalties, continuously missed communication and things like that. That Jamar Chase touchdown. I mean, if you go back and watch the whole pre-play, they're sitting there and talking to each other and trying to coordinate. And then all of a sudden, Quincy Williams runs or something happened where the guy ran inside right before the play. And then it's like, okay, well, obviously that cornerback you just told you were going to be there is going to think you're there because you know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know. I mean, at some point, it's like it's either the coaching, and there's a lack of discipline and teaching, or just the system itself, the scheme is just not working because the Jets, I mean, they just haven't been able to defend pass plays in the middle of the field. They haven't been able to like get to the quarterback. They haven't been able to not get terrible penalties. And so I don't know, man. I'm kind of just at a loss of like, something's got to change. You have to address something. And that does fall on the coaching. You know, when you see mistake after mistake after mistake, that's the same thing. You got to make a change. You know, I mean, the players are, something's going on, whether it's changing the players, changing the scheme, or just doing something. I think in no way can the onus not fall on the coaches at this point when it's the same mistakes over and over again.
Yeah. And for 3 weeks into the season, they've faced two very good quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, good wide receivers in Cincinnati, and Cleveland has a very good running game. They've got Amari Cooper. They're not terrible there. As we look ahead to Pittsburgh, if Mitch Trubisky is dicing up this defense and there are blown coverages here, and, you know, Najee Harris hasn't been able to get the ball moving on the ground because they don't have a great offensive line as well, too. This is going to be the big week where I'm like, this is an offense that has looked really shitty so far this season.
Yep.
If the Jets can't look mature, I guess is the word I'm looking for, and just sound, and Mitch is sustaining these long drives here where busted coverages and missed tackles are the story again. To me, that's where it's like, I'll give you the excuses of the talent we faced so far. Pittsburgh doesn't have it right now.
Yep. And I guess I do just want to kind of, I don't know, be the optimist again. Cause I mean,
go ahead.
I do definitely think like how many of these big plays come down to missed tackles? You know,
the long Tyler Boyd touchdown, Jordan Whitehead
tries to make a big hit, doesn't wrap up.
Yep.
There's other plays like in the run game where there's just missed tackles. And I also think that kind of our safeties in the middle don't play the greatest coverage always. And then I also think there's an aspect of, look at the Ravens game where the defense largely played a very good game. And then you look at last week where, you know, obviously there were some issues, but there were some positives. And I don't know. I do just think like there's positives and negatives. And I do think a lot of it also does come down on the players. It's not just the coaching.
Yeah,
I don't
definitely.
personally think after 3 weeks we're saying, hey, fire Jeff Ulbrich. But at the end of the day, I mean, we've talked about it. He is the most expendable guy in this staff. And if the Jets continue to lose and the defense continues to not look great, he's going to be the one who has to answer for it. And it's just the way it is. I do want to talk about our cornerbacks because along with saying we were going to find out a lot about the defensive line, last week I said we're going to find out a lot about these cornerbacks and how they can do. T. Higgins had a great game, made a lot of great plays. Overall, I thought DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner were phenomenal. I mean, really held their own. Especially Sauce on Jamar Chase was awesome. I think he had one catch to Jamar Chase all day. You look, Jamar Chase only had 29 yards. He had 6 receptions. I think 4 of them came on one drive.
Mm-hmm. Play after. It was literally just like 4 straight plays.
Then you had Tyler Boyd making play after play. He only had 4 receptions, but he had the long one on the missed tackle. He was kind of the guy in the middle of the field where we're the weakest. So definitely, you know, as you know, bad of a loss as it was, I do think that the Jets cornerbacks, especially against, you know, 2 of the best receivers in the league, really showed up. And, you know, at least we only let up 27 points as opposed to like 40. So I don't think it was the end of the world defensively. No. A lot to work on. I think that, you know, it takes a lot for me to be pessimistic. This team's not going to do anything without a pass rush. I mean, they're just not. And that's the NFL. And it's like that needs to get fixed. Carl Lawson needs to start winning, you know, Jermaine Johnson, John Franklin Myers, like all these guys just have to start winning off the edge. I don't know. I mean, maybe we can probably look this up, but like, what is our blitz percentage? Like, do we ever not just rush 4?
There were a couple of plays that I saw, but you're right. It's really just, but that's what this defense is. That's what this heavy cover 3 zone defense. It's the
There just
Seattle
has to be
scheme. It's just
some
like,
type of
but that's
adjustment because we have to get to the quarterback.
that's the problem is like this defense built itself in Seattle back in the Legion of Boom. And it was the Legion of Boom because those guys up front were fucking animals. They just got to you all day. So you could let Richard Sherman sit in the back there. You had Bobby Wagner over the middle of the defense. It was all just built up front. And it, Robert Saleh, or maybe it was Douglas who said it in the offseason, it's one hand washes the other. The defense, allows the DBs, it doesn't give them too much time where they have to protect. And then the DBs, if they shut down, well, it gives the pass rush more time. But it's like, no, if you're going to be sitting in these soft zones, it really is just the pass rush getting there with 4. So you're right. It is a schematic thing where it's just like, you want to dial up blitzes, but this defense has just been it's been built for a decade now over just getting pressure with 4. And it's such a great point. And I want to kind of piggyback off what you're saying and give another position group a little bit of a shout out here. The most disappointing position group to me defensively has been the edge rushers. I thought we ran through the depth chart 5 times this offseason. We're just like, man, this is going to be a problem for defenses. It has been non-existent. I thought the linebackers were going to be so disgusting this year, and I have been pleasantly surprised 3 weeks in. We talked about Quincy Williams and that miscommunication there. He had a fantastic game before getting banged up. Downhill in the run game, those guys are animals. Quan gets down there. CJ's getting down there. Quincy as well, too, especially on these outside zone runs. I mean, they're laying some pops down there. So I like what I've seen from the linebackers. And, for Jordan Whitehead, I know I talked about the 2 deep safeties, and I wanted to bring that up with Jordan Whitehead. Jordan Whitehead had a few good plays coming down in the run game and laying some pop on outside runs. But he's not a pass coverage safety. And the problem is that Joyner at 31 isn't either, coming off of an injury. You need a coverage safety, and they have none right now. And that's a problem. Yes, the corners have looked great, but at the end of the day, they can only do so much. They're going to need help on some of these plays here. And so, as the game went on, you could just kind of felt like Burrow was doing the dink and dunk game, but it was working. And I don't know. When I looked at what this defense was going to be, I was completely wrong because the edge room has been non-existent. The linebackers have been better than I thought they'd be. And the safeties, I was so in on the Jordan Whitehead signing. The problem is if you need him in coverage, it's not really what he was. All of his plays in Tampa were just being a box safety and just hitting and laying the smack down. And he's doing that, but he's spending too much time, roaming the back end of the defense, where it's like, are we getting the best value out of Jordan Whitehead this early into the season?
Yeah, and I think these defensive struggles just really encapsulate like what this Jets season could be, and it could just be another kind of shitty below average season where we're not really being competitive. And it's exactly what you just said. Like the one hand has to wash the other. The edge rushers have to help the secondary, and the secondary has to help the edge rushers. If your edge rushers aren't getting any pass rush, and then your secondary is letting guys run open, like it's just not going to be a combination that's going to work.
You're not washing your hands. You're not washing your hands at all.
it really comes down to, I don't think this D line has like shown the inability to like win, or the inability to get pressure or get a good push off the line.
They're there.
It's just the inability to finish. And it's so frustrating to see over and over. And along with that inability to finish, it's just, can you maintain the edge of the defense, of the pocket throughout the play? And they've shown that they can't. The defensive end will try to work inside to get a win, and then the quarterback just rolls out. And what's surprising about it is that's something, again, we talked about kind of all off season. And week 1, I thought they did phenomenal, just keeping everything inside of them in the run and the pass.
And it was Lamar.
Exactly. They did great kind of keeping Lamar inside and not letting him get around the edge. And then these past 2 weeks with Jacoby Brissett and Joe Burrow, it's like these guys are running free toward the sideline anytime there's pressure. So it's just, this is the modern day NFL where edge rushing is so important. And the Jets have to be able to get a push up front if they want to do anything. And I really just think that's really what it all comes down to. Yeah, I don't know. Cause again, I think there's a lot of players on this defense that are playing well and playing better than we kind of expected them. But with the lack of just solid edge play, it's kind of all for naught.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we've done a good job discussing the frustrations and I guess the positives of this game. Is there anything else that you want to touch on before we move
Greg
into
Zuerlein, 4 for 4.
Good question. Good job. Good bringing him up. And long field goals for a couple of those too.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just gimmies.
No, yeah, and I think he had a decent game last game too. I think it was really just that first one where he had the misses. So, I just want to throw that out there because we've had so many shitty kickers.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. Let's talk about next week because guess what? The Jets are bouncing back with a win. Little tease on my prediction there.
Wow, there we go. All right. Teddy's coming in hot. Well, Teddy, when they go into Pittsburgh, they'll be without George Fant. And we mentioned that a little bit too. He's heading to the IR here.
Forgot about that.
Talking about some of the news. Knee injury, taken out of the Cincy game. People at first thought he was benched because he was playing bad, which he could have been. But comes out, he's a little banged up. He's heading to the IR, so out for at least the next 4 weeks. So like we said, Connor McDermott, Max Mitchell at tackle. The other news is that we haven't gotten a full clearance yet, but it does just seem like the timeline for Zach Wilson does feel like it's happening. So the Jets
should be getting Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday when we're recording this.
No news yet, I guess.
The last I saw was they are waiting for full clearance from the doctors, but he's still on the timeline.
Yeah, and I think, I didn't see like a practice report, but I did see videos of him running around without a brace, practicing and stuff. So we can expect him to be back, I believe.
So
barring any bad news.
I guess the big question, and you don't have to have an answer for this, but what we've seen from the Jets offense this year, I think what we agree on is it hasn't looked as bad as it could have, despite being down 3 tackles now. I think they've done well moving the ball. It's execution in the red zone and getting, turning some of these field goals into touchdowns. Obviously, they need to do a better job getting Elijah involved, but the emergence of Garrett Wilson, what we've seen from the running back room, how do we feel about this offense coming back with Zach Wilson here? Like, do you have any expectations? Have they, we had expectations for Zach before the injury. Now that we've seen the rest of the offense, do you feel better about Zach coming into this room, or do you feel a little bit more worried?
Yeah, it's hard. I think I feel scared, and I feel it's it's a question mark. Just frankly, it is.
Yeah,
I don't.
It is.
And I think what it comes down to is, exactly what you just said. The Jets with Joe Flacco, the offense did look okay, to some extent, and was able to move the ball, was able to score some touchdowns last week, was able to at least put together some scoring drives this week. And maybe if we cut down on the mistakes and have a little bit better of a quarterback, we can score some of those. And that's what I think, our starting quarterback is coming in for our backup. So in theory, this should be a big step forward, and I think with what you've seen from the rest of the offense, that opportunity should most certainly be there for Zach Wilson, especially just with the weapons, Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore, Breece Hall, Michael Carter. What I think the fear is kind of Zach Wilson's 2 biggest weaknesses were, holding on to the ball too long, trying to make a play downfield as opposed to just getting the ball out of his hands quickly, and then just kind of the off-platform inaccurate throws. And I think that what I'm scared of is this offense with Joe Flacco was hindered because Joe Flacco was unable to kind of move around in the pocket, get away from pressure when he needed to. Zach Wilson's most certainly going to be able to do that better. He's going to be able to kind of roll out, hopefully move up and down in the pocket, things like that. But what I worry about is Zach Wilson needs to show that he kind of has that like command and how he knows where he's going with the ball so that if pressure's coming, he kind of can say, if he takes a step to the right, he's keeping his head downfield and he's still able to make a play and get the ball out of his hands quickly, as opposed to, sure, it'll be great if Zach Wilson can extend the play and roll out, but if he's just going to throw a deep bomb that maybe gets picked or gets sacked eventually after holding on the ball too long, that's not going to really help. So in terms of expectations, if things go well and he's able to kind of show that he's cool and collected in the pocket and can get the ball out of his hands and then, roll out and make something happen when he needs to, then I really do think he can succeed. But still, despite what we've seen from this offense and some success they've seen, the question mark of, is he going to be able to get the ball out of his hands quickly? And is he going to be able to fix those accuracy issues are still kind of front and center in my mind.
Yeah. I think you've said everything. I echo all of those thoughts. I like the idea that he is coming into a skill room that is significantly better than what it was last year. I am a little worried, obviously, about the tackle situation, and just you would prefer your quarterback coming back from
I
an
ignored
injury.
that, but yeah, that too.
You would worry. You would want your quarterback coming back from an injury, that he would have a strong offensive line in front of him, not down to its, number 4 and 5 tackles from what they wanted this season. So that part worries me as well too. But like, as I was saying earlier in the episode, the way that LaFleur has adjusted the offensive game plan to give the quarterback more time, I think is the recipe here, where it's, Zach doesn't do great under pressure. There are some accuracy and timing things he needs to be more consistent with. So when you're going up against defenses that are good, as he will for the first, 4 or 5 weeks in this season, he needs as much time as humanly possible. So to me, it's weeks 2 and 3. I thought LaFleur did a good job building the offense to fit Joe Flacco, but now I need Zach Wilson to fit to that offensive scheme, at least until the line is better, at least until he starts to feel a little bit more comfortable. Obviously, he's athletic. He can move out of the pocket and run like Flacco can't. But just in this situation where you're coming back against good defenses week in and week out, you don't have tackles there, I'm playing it safe. I want Zach Wilson here until week 18. I don't want him getting banged up again in 1 week because, he's not seeing, the blind side, guy take him out 4 or 5 times a game. So
definitely,
I think that this should be a good opportunity for him. It's tough. I don't like who he has to face for the first month of this season now. At least if he was healthy, he could have walked into the Cleveland game and had some like easy dink and dunks. And honestly, the Cincinnati defense wasn't that great either. So that would have been 2 games there where I would have liked it. But, obviously we can't control that. So.
No, yeah. And he's just kind of getting thrown into the fire. And
he is.
With the injury, he's kind of losing out on, if he came out week 1 and kind of put up a dud, and even week 2, there's still kind of that, all right, it's the beginning of the season, let's kind of see where he is. People are going to have a short leash with Zach Wilson, it seems, in terms of just criticism and really letting him hear it, just because, hey, the Jets are 1 and 2 and have been mostly disappointing. And Zach Wilson is, supposed to be the guy. And I think it's time that we find out yes or no whether he is. So yeah, I don't know. It's going to be fun to see. And don't get me wrong, I have confidence, and I think, it's going to be fucking awesome not to see Joe Flacco back there. And when you see the left tackle starting to get beat, actually hope maybe our quarterback can run around and get away from the guy, as opposed to just like, oh, there goes for the statue that is Joe Flacco. But yeah, I don't know. It'll be exciting. I guess let's talk about Pittsburgh, man. Let's tell me about their defense a little bit more. I know who's their Watt. Which Watt do they have? Isn't he out for the season?
He's out for a while. Did they call him for the entire season? He's not playing anytime soon.
I don't know that, but
much.
At least we don't have to go against him. That's a positive for the Jets.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, Pittsburgh, I mean, you know, the story with Mike Tomlin, never had a losing season. They're always a competitive team, no matter, you know, what their situation is. You know, 2 years ago, they had that crazy 10-0 start to their season. It flailed out, obviously, but just consistently as a franchise, they are always tough. They're physical. Like they just have a certain, they're kind of like New England and Baltimore, where I feel like a lot of the league over the last 5 years has like adapted to this, you know, spread offense. We're gonna get the ball out, and it's, you know, it's almost like what is it, the Big 10 or 12? I always get that confused in college football. It's like, oh,
Big 12.
Big 12 football. It's like, oh, no one cares about defense. It's just all offense. And these three franchises are just like, no, we are still going to play gritty football. We're going to eke out wins because we can control a 38-point game. You know, it's a lot easier for us to just win ugly than it is to try and keep pace and get lucky with other ones. So for the, you know, Steelers and for this upcoming game, just because I always like to take a look, that the point total is at 40.5, which is disgustingly low for what is the third week or fourth week in a row now for a New York Jets football game. Steelers are 3.5-point favorites at home. So they're not saying there's a huge gap here. You know, Cincinnati came into New York as a 6-point favorite last week. It's kind of like the Cleveland one where it's like, hey, we're on the road, but it's, you know, the other team doesn't seem to have that much of an edge on us. Offensively, they've looked terrible so far this season. They have very talented wide receivers. Najee Harris is a talented running back. They haven't been able to get much in the run game going. And then Mitch, as a quarterback, hasn't looked good.
Has been bad.
Yeah, he's been pretty bad. And Mike Tomlin is so persistent on sitting Kenny Pickett for his entire rookie season. I think that just goes back to these traditional franchises. You know, it's funny to see it because I think Kenny, I noticed it in their most recent game for the Steelers. It was the game against the Browns. There was like 2 or 3 really bad throws from Mitch, and the receivers just look over to the sideline, and it seems like they're yelling at the coaching staff, like, "Can we please put this other fucker in at quarterback?"
Oh yeah, and you could just tell with like the way they were talking to each other and their body language.
Yeah.
I mean, they were fed up.
Which is tough to see this early into the season, but we do know that heading into this week, it's still going to be Mitch Trubisky. So
yeah, this is going to be an important one for me and my psyche. I really think the Jets should, you know, I mean, at least be competitive in this game for sure. The Jets, I feel like I'm in no position to say they have to win. But it does just feel, you know, the defense should be able to have a good game against this offense. The offense hasn't really been successful so far. Mitch Trubisky hasn't looked good, like you said. So I really think that hopefully our defense can, you know, have a good game, kind of hold them. And then it really just comes down to like, is our offense going to be able to go against this like steel curtain of a defense? And I think that's where we really kind of have to look to, obviously our line has to play better, but also kind of our playmakers that have been showing promises with Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore and, you know, our running backs. And I think that if there's a strong game plan, if Zach Wilson, you know, looks okay, is making the right decisions, they have plays where he's getting the ball out of his hands, I think there is definitely a chance where the Jets can come out and look pretty good and win this game against a Steelers team that I really don't think is that good. But again, you know, you have what's the weakness against these young quarterbacks? It's these great defenses with these historic head coaches, you know, who've done it for X amount of years. And so a lot of pressure for sure. But yeah, I think it's a winnable game. I think the Jets can definitely do something here. And it will be very frustrating to me if they do not.
Well, you're right. This is one of those games. Go ahead. You want to say something.
There was something else I wanted to say.
I keep doing this. I keep interrupting you.
No. Because I was going to say it before I said all of what I just said, but then I forgot. And now I can't remember. So I'll let you go ahead.
Nice. Well, I was going to say is like, these are the games where, and it's like the Cleveland one, and it's not like the Baltimore and the Cincinnati one is like, if these coaches want to win these grimy games where they squeak out a 20-17 victory, that right now is the Jets' best chance for a win. They're not going to be that team that is putting up 35 points a week. They're not at that stage. I think they want to get to that stage. Everybody wants to, unless you're one of these old traditional coaches. But they're just not at this point talent-wise. Offensively, they don't have the line for it. Yeah.
Who did the Steelers play last week? The Bears?
The Steelers played the Browns on Thursday night.
The Browns. Okay.
Yeah.
Or this week?
Yeah.
That just happened. And
Yeah.
they 23-20 or something like that.
It was
Low scoring, ugly game.
I think so.
That,
It was definitely ugly and low scoring.
To me, this is gonna sound kind of funny.
29-17.
29-17. And it was really 23. There was that touchdown on the last play of the game. So it was 23-17. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. So this is going to sound kind of funny, but this is one of those games where like sometimes you'll be watching football on football Sunday and it's like the Steelers are playing the Browns or like, I don't know, just two bad teams are playing each other. And then, you know, the Jets are like over here playing the Bills or like the Ravens or the Bengals. And it's like, you get to see these other kind of bad teams. Like at least they get to play against each other and like, you know, one of them's going to win. That's kind of how I feel about this game. It's like, okay, it's the Jets who still have yet to prove themselves. And, you know, we're hoping are good, but still aren't there against this Steelers team who frankly just isn't that good. And while they have the coaching, while they have the defense, I don't see being a playoff team. I don't see being a real contender in this league. I don't know. I think the Jets should come out and this can really be, again, an opportunity to say, hey, we're not the worst team in the league. You know, maybe we're in the bottom half, but it's a little different than it's been in years past. And I think this will be a really important game for that, because if the Jets come out and can't score all day, lose 17-3 or something like that, you know, this fan base is going to explode and
miserable,
you know, so
they're going to be miserable. Oh
yeah, this is a big one. And then who do we got 2 weeks from now? The goddamn Dolphins, the 3-0 Dolphins,
who look so good.
Yeah, so kind of. They kind of looked bad last week. The stupid Bills.
But it's Buffalo. You can look bad against Buffalo.
Well, that's a solid point.
Yeah,
solid point. But Tua is a loser.
He is a loser.
I would love to see Zach Wilson just come out and ball. That would be so fucking sick.
Well, of course it would be sick. That would be the best case scenario. The rest of the season, to me, it's not like, can the Jets make a push for the playoffs? I know that's whatever, you know, the people that are rooting for this team to do well. It's like, let's get to the playoffs now. Let's show in the second year all these additions we made. To me, this year is, can we just stick with our quarterback, or do we have to go switch again? So yeah, Zach Wilson coming out and balling out would be fantastic. I don't love the stretch of opponents he has to start off on it, but I do think this is a better opportunity for him than last year was, at least in just what he has around him.
Yeah, and let's just talk about Garrett Wilson again real quick. He is such a fucking baller. Like he really
we barely spoke about him, I feel like.
And Zach Wilson needs to know. Yeah, but I feel like we do this at the end of every episode where we're just like, all right, now let's talk about Garrett Wilson.
Here are our thoughts. Yeah.
But it's one of those things. It's like when a rookie receiver comes out and does what Garrett Wilson has done, like the question has been answered. Garrett Wilson is good. You know, like he is a good NFL player and is going to be able to be good
again.
As long, yeah, dude. A couple of my friends just got married. They're Jets fans, and they had shirts with their names. Blank is good. I won't say their names, but it was very cool. But yeah, I shout out Garrett Wilson. Finally, we get to see Zach Wilson. You know, and it's frustrating. We missed 3 weeks of this year. Hopefully he can stay healthy, but I mean, hopefully the Zach Wilson to Garrett Wilson connection kind of gets going. Maybe we get a little Andy Dalton, AJ Green sophomore season going and go to the moon.
All right, Teddy, let's give it then. What are your predictions for this game? How do you see it rolling out?
That's a good question. Low scoring. I won't say it's 23-17 again, even though I want to. I'm gonna say the Jets win. And listen, some people say you pick the Jets every week. Are you ever going to be honest? This is my honest take. I truly pick the Jets to win, despite my pessimism after this loss to the Bengals, because I think the Steelers are clowns. I did pick the Jets over the Bengals, but
that's what I was going to say. Did you actually think? I don't know that I
thought I had the right to still pick them to win, because they were coming off the win and the Bengals were 0-2.
True.
If the Bengals were 2-0, I maybe would have looked at it differently. And if we had a better opponent this year, I'd probably be more down in the dumps. Because again, the goddamn Jets don't have a good edge rush and don't have a good offensive line. Got to get it figured out. Go listen to the pod if you missed it, if you just jumped in here at the end. I don't fucking know, dude. I think the Jets are going to win 19-13.
19-13.
Mm,
How do you score 19? Is it
2 field goals, 2 touchdowns, 1 missed extra point? Not a missed extra point, but we go for 2 and don't get it.
Oh, okay.
And then
I like the scoring. I would rather let's get 1 touchdown and then 4 field goals.
4 field goals. So we'll just add a touchdown to last week's score total.
Yeah.
That would
suck.
Yeah, that would be 19. No, I really want, I want to see the defense like not suck dick against a bad offense, but I just really want to see the offense like do something with Zach Wilson because, these rookies are giving us reasons to be excited. Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall have looked awesome. Michael Carter's looked awesome. Like, come on, Zach Wilson, like go out there and make us prolific.
This can be a conversation for another day because we've been going for a while, but the fact that these young rookies should be the thing that takes the Jets from this medium level to a higher level. It shouldn't be these rookies are taking us from the basement to the living room. Yeah. That's what's frustrating about this team is we've got a lot of high paid players that are we're not getting the results out of that we wanted. It's Jordan Whitehead. It's Lawson. It is, I don't want to throw Corey Davis in there because, but the offensive line, Laken Tomlinson has George Fant. Not, he's been meh for me so far this year. Yeah. It's not been what I want it to be. So yeah, it's crazy because like these rookies should be good.
AVT's look.
He has. Yeah. These rookies should be the thing that is like the catalyst for this team that pushes them closer to the playoffs. But they're the only thing that's keeping them competitive right now. Breece has looked great. Garrett Wilson has looked great. Sauce has been fantastic. Jermaine had I believe a pressure last week. I could be wrong, but he's been out there.
DJ Reed, free agent edition, has been the best corner on the team. Sauce has been great, but DJ Reed has been the guy.
And we've got these high paid guys, some of the higher paid guys that are we're not getting what we should be out of them. And it's a long season. We're talking about it in week 3 because this is what we do every week. And
on that, like this defensive line at any moment could take that step and be dominant and get a 5-sack game. But we got to see it because I'm done saying, oh yeah, this D line is a strength of ours, but we just haven't been able to get home. We need to start getting home. It's just the way it is.
Yeah. Well, Teddy, I understand that you have picked the Jets every week. I have picked these correctly every week. I am 3-0 to start the season. I picked them to beat the Browns and to lose to the Bengals. I got a loss.
Fuck.
I do.
Thinks you're gonna lose. Be 3-1.
I know this. I'm ready for the streak to be done. Give me it. But I think this is going to be a 20-16 victory for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think, like you said, the big thing that you said is these head coaches that know how to dial up and confuse young quarterbacks. It's just a tale as old as time. It's like the most one that I remember is like Justin Herbert 2 years ago was off to this unbelievable start as a rookie, and then Bill Belichick came into town and he looked like he had never thrown a football before. Obviously, Sam Darnold seeing ghosts, and that's a fun memory for you guys as well too, to be mic'd up on Monday Night Football. But Zach,
not fun.
He's not a rookie, but he hasn't had a full season of play under his belt just yet, and he's coming into this defense that, yes, there's no TJ Watt, but at all 3 levels, it is at the very least good. They've got linebackers that I like in Devin Bush, and they bring in Miles Jack as well too. Minka Fitzpatrick is a difference maker at safety, one of the 2 or 3 best in the league. Some good guys on the defensive line too. So I think it's going to be ugly. I think it's going to be low scoring. I think the Jets defense is going to hold up well. After I saw what they did, what the corners were able to do, and I know that, Higgins went off, but like you said, Sauce with Jamar and the way that the corners were at least able to hold their own. The Pittsburgh receivers are talented, but they're not Cincinnati talented, and they don't have a good quarterback throwing the ball.
Especially the inside. They don't have like a Tyler Boyd type guy. But,
exactly. Yeah. So I think it's going to be an ugly game, but I'm just going to side with the more consistent franchise, the coach that I know, the franchise that I know, and the Jets hopefully can one day be that. But I'm just going to say it's one of those where I think Zach looks decent enough, but it's still the same problems offensively where the offensive line doesn't help too much. And And yeah, I don't know, maybe not a great run game for them this week either, too. I don't love the matchup with the Steelers interior guys versus the interior offensive line for the Jets. So I think they're going to have to go a little bit pass happy, and hopefully Zach is on his money, but it's also the first time he's playing. You know, it's not like he got a ton of reps in the preseason. He didn't play a full season last year too. So I think there are better days for this offense ahead. I don't like the matchup itself.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited. This seems like a big game.
I just gave you a 16-point loss and you're like, yeah, I'm excited.
Well, yeah.
I'm kidding.
I'm so numb to this shit though. Like
you have to be. You have to be.
The Jets losing to the Bengals is just like, all right, it's another day. You know,
another day in the life.
Like, don't get me wrong, I very much wanted to win, but like I did not think like the world was falling because we lost.
I think people just expected an immediate jump to like AFC contenders. Like, no, the Bengals were in the fucking Super Bowl last year.
Yeah.
And the Ravens are a great team. Yeah,
we get our quarterback back this week, and that's big.
Zach Wilson on his way. Wouldn't that be crazy if by the time this drops tomorrow morning, they're just like, we're going to wait another week. We're going to wait till Miami comes around. That'll be great. We'll clip that, and that'll be something.
Oh, this is what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I would not be. This is a prediction. Feel free, put this out on the Twitter sphere.
We will.
I would not be surprised if this is the first time we see Kenny Pickett sometime in this game.
Interesting.
Why do you ask? There's something about the Jets where there's always something always goes down when there's like a quarterback who's like waiting to play. Something always happens. Listen, I would never wish injury. I don't want to wish injury on Mitch, but something always happens when these like young quarterbacks, like the Browns' first win, I'm pretty sure was
Thursday
against
Night Football.
The Jets when Baker comes into the game.
Thursday night.
Like there's this weird lore. There's other games that I can't think of off the top of my head. But I would not be surprised. It's just a very Jets thing if somehow we see Kenny Pickett at some point in this game. So keep your eye out.
Be interesting.
Yes,
ugly first half for him. You go into halftime, it's 9-6, and you're like, fuck this. Let's bring in the rookie.
Yeah. I mean, they'd probably have to be losing by like 30 for him to bench, which most
or
likely
Mitch gets hurt, like you're saying, is the other situation in which it happens.
There is a world where the Jets come out and blow this team out.
I like it.
It might not be a realistic world, but that's in my head as a possibility. So I'm really hoping that the Jets could do something. Let's end this pod before I make any more blasphemous predictions.
I'm just staring at the schedule and I'm just like,
here's a question for you.
We've done this 3 weeks in a row now where it's like, we'll get through everything we want to talk about.
This is the best part of the pod.
Yeah.
I low key have been looking at starting Zach Wilson on my fantasy team. Well, I have Russell Wilson, who I'm trying to bench this week because he's ass.
You're trying to teach him a lesson.
Right. But there's like nobody on the waiver wire. And I'm like, maybe I'll just throw out Zach Wilson and just really hope for the best. Yeah, I probably won't, but wouldn't that be cool if he just like, I did that? And
look, there is a world where he's like, look, he was a number 2 overall pick. It was an up and down season for him. There was stuff that you like. There's stuff that you're like, I hope you fix that. In the preseason, you didn't see enough to really get a good judgment off of it. And now he's coming in hobbled. But yeah, if he's taken that step and he's got a good connection with Wilson and Elijah Moore can start getting the ball. I mean, there is a world where it starts to get better for them offensively. Like we're saying, this is the starter coming in for the backup. So you would assume everything that we've seen up to this point is a little bit better, hopefully.
Yes. But also second-year quarterback, first game in, maybe some growing pains. I don't know. Fuck, man. I'm going back and forth with my emotions here.
Dude, let me just rattle this off one more time. Steelers, Dolphins, Packers, Broncos, Patriots, Bills, Patriots. Ugh.
That sucks. What's wrong with Mac Jones again?
That takes you to the end of November. What'd you say?
What's wrong with Mac Jones?
High ankle sprain.
Okay, so he'll be back. Well, we're better than the Patriots. We're going to beat the Dolphins. Who else? The Broncos suck. All right, I'm not worried. You don't know how to get me down, Blake.
I'm
I will always come back to you with optimism
every week.
I
every
don't
week.
know. I'd like
I'm
the
gonna hit
Jets
you
to
after that.
win this game. That would be sick.
I would like
If
the
we
Jets
can
to win
get
this
to
game
2
too.
and
I want you
2,
happy. I want you happy.
yeah.
I need you. I
No,
need a
well,
happy
you
Teddy.
always. I know.
Look,
I don't
I'm
know.
also, I'm partially a Jets fan while I'm waiting for the Colts to
Yeah,
spit in my
Colts beat the
face.
Chiefs though. Shout out.
Beat the
I'm surprised
Chiefs,
you didn't
and we
bring that up
play
right
the
away.
Titans this week. And I just like, if we get blown out by the Titans, I'm gonna kill myself. Can you say that on a podcast? Yeah, you can. You
No,
can say
you're
whatever
probably
you
gonna
want.
get canceled.
I'm gonna kill myself.
Nah, it's just the void. You can say whatever you want into the void.
Yeah.
All right, let's say goodbye into the
Yeah,
void.
let's wrap this up. Thank you guys so much for listening to another episode of Chasing 69. Follow us on Twitter at NYJ_Chasing 69.
Chasing 69.
It's a lot of Chasing 69s back in a row. YouTube the same. Teddy at Teddy Honcho. I'm at Blake Andrew Pace. Work is on Sports Illustrated as well too. Thank you, Teddy. Thank you all for listening, and thank you to the New York Jets. Good luck against the Steelers this week. We'll talk to you later. Peace.